Joining me this morning is Connecticut Congressman Joe Courtney. Sir, it's good to have you here. And as we tell everybody off the top of the hour, the president speaking 45 minutes from now to announce this new interagency task force on gun control. He's not expected to announce any new specific gun regulation policy proposals. However, does this suggest to you that some serious policy is coming and coming soon?
It does. I mean, the difference in the political landscape in 6 days, is dramatic. I mean, that's really, I think, not an overstatement. When I was there Sunday night at the Interfaith, when he was talking, it was very clear this is not a guy who was reading a speech or, staff-supplied talking points. This was really coming from the heart, and he had a look in his face when he came in and on that stage, which showed that this is different. And it better be different because the whole world is watching. And we just note, Vicky Soto's funeral today. My niece was her classmate at Eastern Connecticut State University, and the feeling of awe, of just a human excellence and courage in terms of her actions that day are something that, again, has got to be used as a measuring stick for the elected representatives of this country that, she did her job, and now it's time for us to do our job.
Sir, as you talk about the different tone and the distinction that we're hearing, there are certain voices on the right that are lending a different type of perspective to this, like Texas Governor Rick Perry, the latest to advocate training and arming school teachers. Vicky Soto, she's the teacher heralded for putting the kids in cabinets in her classroom. Her service is held today. Then we have Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell just yesterday saying on MSNBC's The Daily Rundown that it's a conversation worth having about arming teachers. Do you think that's an answer for Connecticut and schools across the country?
I don't. I mean, school safety is clearly something that we need to inventory. I'm a member of the Education and Labor Committee next January, and I've already written to the chairman saying, we need to have a, real information sharing of best practices. Right now, school superintendents are getting inundated with solicitations from security firms. We need to help public schools deal with this new reality. But frankly, the Rick Perrys of the world could, I think, do a lot more in terms of trying to move this discussion forward, by acknowledging right out of the bat that the Second Amendment, which is, clearly a part of our Bill of Rights, does not prohibit, even under the most recent Scalia decision, the state from moving forward on common sense measures in terms of who gets guns, under what circumstances, and what type of technology.
Certainly we're hearing, though, from people who have spoken out pro-gun, Second Amendment right advocates like Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin, Mark Warner, now advocating for a look at stronger gun control, though some have certainly seemed resistant to this. Colleagues of yours like Virginia Congressman Robert Goodlatte telling Roll Call just yesterday that we're going to take a look at what happened there and what can be done to help avoid it in the future. But gun control is not going to be something that I would support. I just want to point out to everybody here, Congressman, that Goodlatte, he has an A rating from the National Rifle Association, but he's been elected by his conference to come in to chair the House Judiciary Committee next year. That is the committee that has jurisdiction over firearms regulations. So how do you and other gun control advocates plan to address that lack of appetite for any type of new legislation among colleagues there in the new year?
Well, again, this is going to be a very challenging task. I mean, your description of the Judiciary Committee as a roadblock is really something the public needs to know about. But what I would just say is that with the president now engaged, obviously with the Senate and having real leaders like Mark Warner and Senator Manchin, who are both A-rated, coming out and saying, the status quo is just unacceptable, I do think that there's going to be public pressure where my colleague, Mr. Goodlatte, is going to have to respond to. And frankly, if you look at civil rights battles, issues, the fact is grassroots public opinion can break through even the rules of the House of Representatives.
You make such a great point about public opinion here, because Newtown United is a group that has already formed and has already shown up there in Washington, D.C. This is a compilation of people who live in Newtown, and one of the people who spoke that was very touching, one of the fathers whose son survived the attack at Sandy Hook.
Every time something like Columbine, Virginia Tech, or Aurora were happening, I would avert my eyes, and I will still think that something will be done. But all those beliefs were shattered on Friday. And now I think we all need to speak up.
Sir, as we know and as we've been reporting, today is one of the busier days for funerals and wakes that are taking place for those that have been lost in the Newtown tragedy. It's almost too raw for many of them to get involved in this kind of advocacy or this kind of support. But have you signaled to any of your colleagues in other states where this has been a tragedy, as we look at what we've witnessed in Aurora, Colorado, as we look at what took place in Tucson, Arizona? Are you trying to reach out to build a coalition of your colleagues from states that have been affected by this for the rest of their lives because they've lost a loved one to this type of violence? Is that what you're trying to build your coalition from inside those walls there?
Absolutely, and what I would just tell you is that just in the last few days, the fact is that people in member offices are hearing unprecedented numbers of emails, calls, letters, public opinion in terms of their newspapers back home that is changing, again, the landscape around their thinking in approaching this issue. And again, I think that the two senators who, again, I'm sure were motivated by their own soul searching, but frankly, they know that the world changed and that this is going to be a different political climate. Again, the president's engagement is critical in terms of, he's got a bully pulpit that dwarfs any other place or microphone in this building here, and again, I just think that no school today in America truly feels safe, and that's not a situation that the political community can ignore. This is a different world that we're in from 6 days ago.
Connecticut Congressman Joe Courtney, thank you so much.